Hey there, it's Tim. Had a little bit of a hiccup here starting here at 5 after the hour because had a little misconfiguration going on. I don't know if it was on YouTube's side or my side, but it looked like it was trying to put tonight's feed into yesterday's program. And things are kind of opaque there in the settings, and it's hard to tell, where it's putting what. So I think I got it running here, and if not, we'll figure it out later. Anyway, I was looking at this map here of the LA area. Can you imagine being in this? Man, what a mess there. I was looking at Dallas and San Antonio, and things were a lot better. But there on the West Coast, there it's 6 o'clock, so they're in the middle of rush hour. And they've got the heat going on too, and we don't have a whole lot going on across the U.S. This evening. Mostly a lot of heat. This here is a heat advisory. In fact, let me scroll down here. This is the Weather Service warnings page. And they've got a excessive heat warning for the deserts of Nevada and California. So I'm going to bring up the temperatures here in a minute, but their basic forecast page there is showing 109 there. But that's off the digital forecast models. What we want to do is go to the actual analysis, and let me bring that up here. This is going to be from UCAR. Looks a lot like what we had yesterday. So temperatures well over 111 throughout this entire area, all the way back to Phoenix and up to Vegas. However, you can also see there's a little bit of a southerly component to the wind flow. See that right there? So there's a little bit of this advection of cooler air coming in from the Pacific into this heat low, which is centered probably about right there. See that convergence there of wind flow between around Baker and Las Vegas. And even in the Arizona deserts, that's flowing up towards the heat low, kind of like that. It looks like a different circulation around Phoenix. The winds are out of the west there and out of the south in Tucson. Some of that may be thunderstorm related. But it looks like a couple different heat lows. There's probably another one up there in the Great Basin. This is off the north edge of the map, so let me pan that up there. The temperatures are a little bit cooler there in the Tonopah and Reno area. And we were seeing 110 there around Redding and Red Bluff, and that's backed way off there, so they got 102. And we've got red flag warnings up through the Great Basin up into the Washington area. And that's pretty much about it, what's going on the West Coast. There are some thunderstorm cells. Let me see if I can bring that up real quick. I'll bring up the satellite imagery, and I'll go to College page for that. So there we go. Overall, things are pretty clear under the upper level high itself. Most of the thunderstorm activity is around the periphery of that high and in the higher terrain of Arizona right through here. So this is around Flagstaff up through Seligman and up to the Grand Canyon area. But once you get out onto the lower terrain around Phoenix, it looks like they actually don't have a whole lot of thunderstorm activity. Most of that is back out east of Tucson and south of there. It looks like a pretty good tower there. See that little bit of an overshoot. What's going on elsewhere around the Great Basin, and we pull up Nevada real quick. Looks like a little bit of the monsoon has kind of worked from the northwest, or from the southeast to the northwest. So that's kind of flowing up into that low pressure area that we saw on the surface map. So pretty rainy and showery pattern, pretty typical for July and August in Nevada. And just a quick look up in Washington, not a whole lot going on. Pretty clear skies. And let's see, moving to the central U.S., we do have a severe thunderstorm warning, it looks like, from Denver up to around Scottsbluff. We might take a look at the radar for that. Let me just go ahead and do that real quick. I started it here on the Fort Worth radar, showing a few multi-cells through the mountains of southeastern Oklahoma. I can tilt the See over here, I've got these tilts. I can tilt it up to 1.5, and I'm reading off the bottom 35,000 feet for that. And then when we get up to 50,000 feet, we hit the tops of those storms. So those storms are going to be a little bit on the tall side because of the fact that it's late summer. So we have kind of a high tropopause. And what I wanted to do real quick is bring up the Denver radar. Let's see, do I have that on my list? No, I don't. I'm going to have to go to the drop-down list. So I'm going to go to Select in GR Level 2 and go to the KFTG radar. And right away it brings up one little severe thunderstorm warning there around Fort Collins. So let's see, what do we got here? Storm near Greeley, moving southeast at 25. Source, train weather spotters. So this is going to be confirmed severe weather. And they were seeing golf ball sized hail, 60-mile-an-hour gusts. Don't see a whole lot of clarification on that spotter report. So anyway, either they were observing that or it was a combination of that and radar indications. So there we go. We'll zoom in on that one cell. We got ourselves a supercell here. Probably kind of a high base supercell. Let's see, can I bring up the roads? Yeah, there we go. So let's see, we have I-70 down off to the south part of the screen. The airport is right here, Denver International Airport. Actually, it's right in here. Look at the way they annexed the land, going all the way back there. See that little sliver going all the way to the northeast. Anyway, the stuff is well north of that. So this is going to be towards the grasslands. And let's see, Fort Collins is going to be, let's see, off to the west side. So Fort Collins is going to be back in there. And so I guess this is the Greeley area. Take a closer look at that storm there. What I want to do is run the animation and kind of see which way it's moving. It's moving southeast. And what I'll do is I'll tilt up and see if I see anything interesting. I'll go up to 0.9, 1.3, 1.8. This is revealing a little bit overhang. Looks like it's sheared down to the southeast. This is going to be overlying the updraft area. And I can tell that just because I'm kind of comparing that with what I saw earlier on the first tilt. So this is kind of leaning towards the southeast. So I'll bring that up higher to the very top of the storm there. It's like some evidence of a vault right there. See that right there? Let me put a dot there. Actually, we got a new frame in. Looks like that vault is probably moved here. So I'm going to put a mark there. So we got a little dot there. And I'll kind of compare that with the low-level scans. So right around here we reach the top of the storm. This is up at about 43,000, and then the storm's gone. So that little vault is overhanging this little area down to the south. So this is probably going to be about where the updraft base is. If you're chasing, I don't know if there's any roads in this area. In fact, if it's road sparse, you probably want to head south to Interstate 80. Forgot the name of that freeway down here. So this might be a good place to hang out right down here. You would certainly have good visibility to the northwest in that area on the high plains. So the next question is what's going on with the velocity? Well, I haven't set the storm relative velocity vectors yet, but we can already see a little bit of a pattern going on here. Definite couplet, see that right there? There's very strong inbound and very strong outbound. We got to keep in mind that the radar is that way, because I know it's down to the south, and I'm also looking at the radial pattern right here, so that kind of clues me in also. And that's important because you have to orient these couplets relative to these radials. So when we have outbound right here and inbound right there, that tells us that we have cyclonic rotation. And because they're not right side by side perpendicular to the beam, they're kind of like diagonal, that tells us that there's also a convergence component associated with that too. Another way to think about that is, here's the radial. See that little inbound area? You can think of it as extending out across here. And you can think of the outbound as extending across here. So what does that give us? That gives us inbound here, or I'm sorry, outbound there and inbound here. That's convergence. So what we have here is rotational convergence. So probably what this is indicating is a flow kind of like this. Air kind of swirling into a mesocyclone. So we got a shot of maybe getting a tornado out of that, certainly. And the magnitude of the rotation and the convergence, well, we've got 30 knots outbound, 42 inbound. I'm not going to mess with setting the storm motion vector on that. This because the values I'm getting on the couplets are pretty similar. I'm showing, say, 30 out and 30 in. That's going to be about 60 to 70 knots of rotation. That's not very heavy, but you know, it's certainly spinning there pretty good. And the diameter of that rotation is going to be about 5 miles. So it's kind of a broad meso, and I'm certainly not seeing a TVS or anything like that. If we were having that, we would see very tight velocity couplets very close together. So I'm going to set the mark right in the middle of that stuff. So that's going to be about the center of the meso. And that puts it right out over the rain-free base. So that's where you want to be if you're out on that storm. Somewhere south of Greeley and maybe down towards that freeway. And I'll take a look at one other thing, the spectrum width. I'll go into this in more detail on another episode when we have more patterns to work with, because I'm not seeing much in the way of spectrum width features here. A lot of times I'll use this to find outflow boundaries and that kind of thing. But I'm not really seeing anything here except just a massive rain. Very homogeneous assortment of velocities showing in that storm. So they went ahead and issued another severe thunderstorm watch out towards that interstate, and that should continue moving on down towards the southeast. And what else do we have going on? Yesterday we had storms across the Virginia, Maryland area. Those have probably pushed well offshore. Got that strong jet stream energy pushing everything out to the east, so there's probably a little bit of high pressure across there, and I would expect to probably see a bit of a front in the wake of that. So do we have that? Let me bring up a surface chart. There's Charlotte. Wow, it's cooled down there quite a bit. Remember we were seeing 90s there? Of course, I think we did start a little bit later in the day as far as this program here, so things did cool off. But I do see northerly components across North Carolina meeting up with southerly flow down here. So it looks like that's probably the tail end of that front, probably looking something like that. So probably a little bit of relief there. And what else is going on? I'll look at Texas real quick before we wrap up. Texas has just the usual flow out of the Gulf, but it looks like we do have a backdoor front up in Oklahoma. So you see this line that I drew? To the south of that we have southeasterly flow. To the north of that we have northeasterly flow. And this gets to be common as we get into August and September. We'll have these incursions of air from the Great Lakes that kind of creep southward, And we'll tend to get thunderstorms along those boundaries. That's a pretty efficient way of getting that. And certainly up in the high plains, we get some of that too. And where's the dry line? Well, this is summer, so we tend to find the dry line a lot further west. In this case, it looks like it's way out over the higher terrain towards the, forgot the name of the mountains there, around Alamogordo, Klein's Corner, out in that area. But this whole fetch of moist air is feeding all the way across the Four Corners to northern Arizona, and that's kind of the spin up of the monsoon that we usually get this time of year that gets going in the desert southwest. And that brings some moisture from the Gulf and some moisture from the Gulf of California. Well, let's see, that's about all I got for today. I was hoping to put some live video on, and I'm going to try to do that tomorrow. Sony Vegas, I was having some problems with that and trying to work some bugs out. I should be able to get that going for tomorrow. So hopefully we'll have some fun with this over the next few days, and I'll keep this going as long as I can, and we'll see where this goes. Oh yeah, let's look at the hurricane stuff. So we got a couple of new waves coming off the African coast. That's going to be interesting. Have to watch for possible tropical cyclones out over the Caribbean in about 3 or 4 days, looks like. And if we have that going on, we'll certainly be doing a lot of streaming. Well, that's about all I got, so I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. I'll try to do these in the evening. I think this is probably the most convenient time for everybody, about 8 or 9 when everybody's home. And anyway, thanks for watching.